see you from across the room. It's kinda crowded here, but I know you see me too. Everybody's singing, oh, everybody's singing, oh.
Hey guys, welcome back to This Homemade Life. My name is Courtney, and it's time for another What's for Dinner video. This week my family had a lot of awesome meals. I included some kind of breakfast and dessert items as well, just because I made them and I thought they would be fun. Maybe you guys would enjoy trying them too. As usual, I will do my best to either link recipes below or list them out so you guys can give them a shot at home because, man, these were all so delicious. Before we jump in, I do want to take a really quick minute to tell you guys, I am just, oh wow, I am amazed. I hit 700 subscribers this past week and oh, it meant so much to me, you guys. I just wanted to take a minute and let you know how awesome that is, and thank you all so much for subscribing and tuning in and watching my videos and liking them and commenting and all the wonderful things that you do to help me make this channel. You guys are amazing, and I would not be able to do this without you and your support. Thank you guys so much. All right, that's enough talking. Let's jump right in and see what we had for dinner this week. So I feel like this week's meals kick off with what's really basically a classic at this point. I think we have all seen this or made it at some point. It's those little sliders that you make. You put them in the oven. They've got the butter sauce on them and stuff. So I make mine a little bit differently. I followed the original recipe the first time I made them, and it has you mix melted butter with mustard and some other stuff, and we just weren't nutty about it. So this time I melted about 3 tablespoons, maybe 4, of butter and put in a really heavy-handed sprinkle of some everything but the bagel seasoning, probably a good 2 teaspoons full. I mean, I really was not light with it at all. I used that butter and brushed the bottom of my casserole dish, and then I have these little pretzel slider rolls. I bought them on the clearance rack at Walmart. I had never tried them before. The tops of them are salted, so obviously I'm not going to be brushing any butter on the top of these like you typically would, which is why I only did about 3 tablespoons of butter. I did butter both sides of the little buns there, the top and the bottom, so there's plenty of flavor. And I've chosen to do ham and Swiss. Of course, with these, you can put whatever meats and cheeses you want on them. This was just what I had and what we enjoy. So I really layered on a pretty hearty layer of ham and then a pretty hearty layer of Swiss. I mean, I was not shy with it at all. I wanted to make sure there was plenty of meat and cheese in every single bite of these. And then I just placed the tops on and I covered the dish and put it in the oven and baked it for like 25 minutes. And then for the last 5 minutes, I did take the foil off the top to kind of toast the top of the buns. I didn't want them to get too crusty, but I did want a little bit of toasting action to happen there. Now, I will say, for the amount of time that I baked these, the cheese still had not melted in the middle. They were still delicious, but it still was not ooey gooey in the center. However, we did like these much better than the first time I made them with that mustard in the butter. I would definitely make these again, and those pretzel rolls were really nice. They were like Hawaiian pretzel rolls, so they had this really awesome, sweet, savory flavor thing going on. I'd totally use those again. They were really good, and there they are. I had 3, my husband had 3, and then I saved the other 3, and we just munched on them later. It was just us having lunch that day. All right, on to our next meal. So actually, this is a breakfast I was making for my husband to take to work throughout the week. This is a lemon blueberry bread. In case you don't know, I have like a ton of frozen blueberries in my freezer. I buy them when they're on sale at Market Street, buy one, get one free, and then I just bring them home, wash them, dry them, and freeze them. So I'm always looking for a cool way to use them up. I mean, I put them in pancakes and muffins, all kinds of stuff, but they're very affordable, so I like to stock up when they're on sale. This was such a simple recipe. It's flour, baking powder, salt. They called for unsalted butter. All I have is salted, and it turned out beautifully, so I wouldn't worry about it. Sugar, eggs, vanilla, some grated lemon zest, which I did not have, so I just got a little heavier with the lemon juice that I added in here. And then milk, frozen blueberries that you sprinkle 1 tablespoon of flour on just to coat them so that they don't fall to the bottom of the batter. And I mix mine like you're supposed to, the wet ingredients in one bowl, dry ingredients in the other, and then I combine them at the end. And I bake this in a loaf pan. Now, the recipe I found does include a glaze recipe, and I'll link all of this down below so you guys can check it out. I did not put the glaze on it. I was serving this more of a breakfast for my husband, so I didn't feel like it needed this glaze, but it's a pretty simple one. It's just butter, powdered sugar, lemon juice, and vanilla extract, so not a big deal. But I did spray my little bread loaf pan thing there, and I lined it with parchment. This makes it so much easier to pull it out and cool it off when it's done cooking. I know it seems like a lot for an extra step, but it makes such a difference at the end of the day. I highly, highly recommend doing it this way. And I just popped this in the oven. I think it was like an hour that it had to bake. And then I let it cool for, it said 30 minutes, but it was still nice and warm at 30 minutes. And I didn't want it to lose all its moisture in the center by like all the steam escaping. So this probably cooled on my counter for more than 2 hours. But then I sliced it up and oh my gosh, this was amazing. I will totally make this again. You guys have got to try it. All right, so on to dinner this night. This was such a good meal. I had never tried this before, but I was really looking forward to it. It is zucchini taco boats. So I had some zucchinis in my fridge and they were huge, and I bought this ground turkey because I had seen people do it with ground turkey and I thought that would be a really good way to do it. I started off by dicing up one small onion. If it was a large onion, you'd probably only want to do like half of it, but this one was small. So I diced it up and then I put my ground turkey in this pan and I got to work cooking it. Now I got the 85-15 ground turkey, which if you're curious at Walmart is like $2 a roll, so it's actually a really good deal. You're just going to have to worry about draining it because my gosh, the amount of liquid in that pan, look at that. It's crazy. So I just set up a colander on top of a bowl in my sink. That way I could drain all of the liquid and the fat out and not put it down the drain. Once that was drained, cooked all the way through the whole bit, I did want to season it. Now, if you want, you could always just use taco seasoning from the grocery store, but you guys know how I am about that. I do not like that stuff at all. So I just did a little bit of cumin and a little bit of chili powder and some salt and some pepper. And of course I had some diced up onion in there already, and I added a little bit of minced garlic to it. And this was so good. I didn't add any water to simmer it in because it wasn't a regular seasoning packet of taco mix. The only thing I would do different, I did not put any kind of liquid in here. I should have put some kind of tomatoes in there. At the end, after I cooked all this, I topped it with paste salsa, which you guys won't see because I didn't get a picture of that, but it needed it. So next time I cook this, and I will cook it again, I will definitely add in at least 1 cup of just some kind of picante sauce, you know, the chunky kind with all the vegetables and diced tomatoes, the whole bit. I did toss in 1 drained can of corn. I think I preserved just a little bit because my son had asked for some, but it was almost the whole can of corn. And I mixed this all together. Over here I have some zucchinis. You can see one of those guys is huge. That is I think it's a 9x13 pan, and that 1 zucchini takes up almost the whole length of the pan. They were so long, so I only did 2. I didn't feel like we would need more than that, and we still had some left over. These were gigantic, but I did make sure to hollow out like a little boat and get all the seeds and stuff out that causes all the moisture, because we want this to kind of be sturdy, you know, like a taco shell kind of. I did not pre-bake mine or anything like that. You can if you want to, but that's going to make them super, super soft. I wanted these to have some texture left. So if you chose to, you could pick it up and eat it like a taco. And I really, really like it that way. But if you don't, go ahead and pre-bake these guys for like 15 to 20 minutes so they get nice and soft, because your filling is already cooked, so it's not going to take very long in the oven. So now that they're all hollowed out, I'm going to go ahead and just pour my filling in there. And I put all of that filling in all 4 of those pieces of zucchini. Some of it spilled over a little bit, not a big deal. Whenever I served it, I just kind of piled it back on top. It didn't hurt anything one bit. It was perfect. But I really, really piled it on there. And you will see me put cheese on 2 of these. I just used regular shredded cheddar cheese, nothing special. But if you've been here a while, you know my oldest does not like cheese. So I only put cheese on the top of 2 of them. And then I put these back in the oven, 350 degrees, for like 10 minutes just to melt that cheese all the way through, make them nice and gooey, and they were so delicious. Like I said, I did end up putting a bunch of picante sauce on top of them, but oh man, I will totally make these again. I loved them. My family loved them. There was so much flavor, and it was just something different from your typical taco kind of dinner. I really, really enjoyed this meal. So up next, I am making some roasted garlic bread. Now I do have a recipe for this, and I will list it down below in the description box. So I started off by roasting a whole head of garlic. Now, unlike the other times I've roasted garlic, you just cut the head off and wrap the whole thing up in foil. This recipe actually called for you to separate the cloves, or didn't call for you to. They said it would be better if you did, which is what I did. I separated all the cloves, you know, unwrapped them the whole bit. This took a good chunk of time. I mean, it made a difference because there is definitely less waste, and each clove roasted individually, and it was easier for me to chop them up and stuff at the end.
but I'm not sure I would do it again. It took a lot of time. Anyway, if you're doing it this way, you just get all the little cloves out, put them in some foil, make it like a little boat, pour some olive oil on it, and roast it 400 degrees for like 20-25 minutes. And you've got a roasted head of garlic that's already in cloves. If you're doing it the traditional way, cut the head off the garlic, pour some olive oil over the top, wrap it in foil, and roast it 400 degrees for 1 hour. Then you can just squeeze the garlic out at the end. So either way would work fine for this particular recipe. So while that is doing its thing, it's roasting in the oven, I went ahead and started making the bread. That way it has time to rise and do all that stuff. So I mixed together 1 cup of warm water with some yeast and a little bit of sugar, a teaspoon of sugar, and I let that just kind of sit and bloom and do its thing. And then I mixed everything else together in the bowl. It's salt, garlic powder, lots of flour, 2 to 3 cups of flour, just depending on how sticky it is. You're going to have to just kind of do it by feel. And then a little bit of olive oil there at the end. And I have it in my mixer, and I'm just going to use the dough hook and let this do the work for me, because this is so much easier than having to knead it yourself. The last thing I add is that yeasty water that's bloomed, and as you can see, we're in the kneading cycle now. The dough has come together. This is a stickier dough, but not too sticky. I mean, it worked out fine. But just so you know, I mean, it will stick to things a little bit, and that's all right. It turned out beautifully. It really, really did. So I kneaded this for like 5 minutes in my machine, and I felt like that was a really perfect amount of time. And then I just took some olive oil and poured it over the top of the dough ball and kind of rolled it around in there. And that just makes it so that it doesn't stick to the bowl as it rises. I covered it with some plastic wrap and just set it off to the side and let it rise. And I actually let it rise once and punched it down and let it rise again before I pulled it back out of the bowl to do anything else with it. So now my garlic is done roasting. I let it cool a little bit so that I could work with it. It's still kind of hot, but I can definitely work with it. I pulled it all out of the foil and I reserved the oil that's left in there. We're going to use that in a little bit. And I just kind of went to town chopping at this. I'm not looking for like perfection or anything like that. I just wanted to break the garlic down a little bit so that it would mix into my dough better. And it's not an even mince or chop or anything like that. Just breaking it down some. And now I'm going to go ahead and work with my dough. It's been rising, so I'm going to just dump it out on this floured surface. And like I said, it is a sticky dough. So when I dump it out, I'm using lots of flour as I work with it because it is very, very sticky. And I'm just going to pour the minced garlic I have there on top of the dough and just knead it in. I put on some gloves for that because it was a little bit messy. And it only took a few minutes to get it evenly dispersed throughout my dough. And then I had really roasted garlic bread at that point. I just kind of folded the ends underneath and rolled it into like a loaf shape. And then I just cut some little slits across the top because it's going to rise as it cooks, and that just makes for a better shape and stuff, I think. I'm not sure. Now, the one thing I did wrong was I forgot to brush egg on the outside, so mine did not get that beautiful golden brown color. It was very white. But it tasted really, really good. My family thoroughly enjoyed this, and it made enough bread for us to eat for a couple of days with dinner. So I will definitely make this again and, of course, brush the egg on the outside next time so it looks a little more attractive. I'm going to work on dinner now, and this is a recipe I've made before from scratch, and I have found a shortcut. This worked out really well. It's not exactly the same, but it's close enough that it'll do. I have a bag of fish planks. I got the Gordon's kind because I just think they're really, really good. And I'm cooking those according to the package directions. And then I'm going to make like a lemon garlic herb sauce to go on top. I'm mixing some butter and olive oil together in my skillet with a little bit of, no, not a little bit, that's a lot of minced garlic. That's probably like 3 cloves of minced garlic. I'm also going to pour in some lemon juice, some pepper, and then at the very end I'm going to put in a bunch of fresh dill. And I'm just going to let this simmer for a few minutes on the stovetop so all the flavors get to meld together and get all yummy. And this is the sauce for our fish. Now, if you've watched my channel before, I made a similar dish where I actually had cod and I dusted it in flour and pan fried it for a few minutes, then baked it in the oven with this garlic lemon butter sauce on top, and it was fantastic. This is just a faster take on that. And you know what? It was really, really close. I mean, it's not quite as delicious, but it was really good. And if you're in a hurry, I mean, it works out really, really well. In the background, I'm just making cream spinach, which I've made on my channel before. It's pretty simple. So if I can find that video, I will link it below. I'm not entirely sure which one it was, so no promises on that one. But anyway, as you can see, I'm just putting in that fresh dill now. I went pretty heavy with it because you guys know I love my dill. And once I put the fresh herbs in there, I only let it cook for like another minute or two because you don't want to like fry your herbs or burn them or anything like that. You just want that flavor to get like in everything. And of course, when the fish came out of the oven, I just poured this right over the top when it was all nice and crispy. And because I served it right away, it stayed crispy. It didn't get soggy. If it was something that you were going to be reheating the next day, you wouldn't want to top it with the oil. You'd want to just reserve it to pour it on the next day and then reheat the fish in like the air fryer or something. But there's the meal, the bread, roasted vegetables, the cream spinach, and of course that garlic herb fish was fantastic. All right, we're on to another day. My husband finished all of his lemon blueberry loaf bread early, so I'm making some more breakfast for him this week. He really, really loves oatmeal cookies, so I found a recipe for simple oat muffins that tastes similar to an oatmeal cookie. So I'm just whipping up a batch of those. I will link this recipe down below. It was really, really good. It's got flour, baking powder, baking soda, salt, rolled oats, brown sugar, eggs, vegetable oil, milk, and vanilla. And then if you want to make a topping for it, which I did, it is just cinnamon, sugar, and oats. The topping was good. I think next time I'm going to change that part up. I would add a little bit of butter to that because you put the topping on before you bake the muffins. So I think if you add a little butter, it's going to get brown and crispy and delicious. These oats and the sugar and cinnamon really did not. That's the only thing I would change. But overall, this was really, really, really good.
I've been trying my best for a while, trying to please everyone who's around me. I've been putting on a fake smile, even though I'm wasting time. I don't want to be trapped in a box, trying to be like the rest when I'm not. I just wanna go my own way, gonna let the past burn down. Cause honestly, don't wanna be stuck in boring conversations with you. With you, I'm gonna leave it all behind, find myself, I'm gonna start over new. Yeah, I'm on my way now. 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 I'll be going away for a while. Oh, and I don't know what I'll find. Maybe I can be a rock star, playing songs on my guitar. I know I have to be somewhere else to be able to find myself. Shouldn't be so complicated. If I listen to my heart, I'm gonna leave it all behind, find myself, I'm gonna start over new. Yeah, I'm on my way now.
Now, I made this according to the recipe. The only thing I did differently was to add about a tablespoon, probably not even that much, of cinnamon into the batter itself. Next time I make these, I think I would really like to try the applesauce substitute for an egg because I think that flavor is going to be beautiful in here. I also wouldn't mind putting some diced up apples in the muffins themselves or raisins, just like you would in an oatmeal cookie. And I would definitely add more cinnamon and some nutmeg for sure, just because I think that warmth would be fantastic in here. As you can see, I use the little like muffin liners just because I think that is so much easier, especially if you're doing any kind of meal prep where these are going to go to lunch with somebody, go to work with somebody, that kind of thing. It just makes them easier to like carry and put places. So I'm definitely using the muffin liners. And this made a good dozen muffins. I actually think I probably could have made like 14 muffins, but I didn't want to drag out another muffin tin. So I just made a dozen really puffy muffins. I topped them each with that topping I told you about. And like I said, it wasn't bad, but I think some butter in there to make it an official crumble topping would have been really, really good. That was a missed opportunity. I even thought about it when I was doing it, but I'm like, no, we're going to follow this recipe. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to do this according to plan. And I did. And I mean, it was okay. But that crumble, the texture of it, and the little bit of saltiness from the butter with that cinnamon, sugar, and oats would have just been absolutely fantastic. I also think I could have added a little bit more cinnamon in there, but you live, you learn. You know, sometimes you cook something and you just kind of use that as a guideline and you know what you like so you can change it up next time. They were really good. There's the muffins. You can see those oats on top and everything. Really tasty, a lot of flavor. Okay, so on to the next meal. I am actually making some French onion pork chops, but here's the side I'm making. This is so simple and so cheap. If you've got potatoes, just cheap russet potatoes. I had a couple of really big ones like there. That's Texas size. You know how it is. Everything's bigger in Texas. We got these big potatoes. Anyway, I just quartered them and then thinly sliced them. I put a little bit of vegetable oil in there, and then I'm just using that Kingsford garlic and herb seasoning. You can use any seasoning mix you want. Any one at all, any kind of barbecue seasoning, anything. It's all fantastic on potatoes. They're like a blank canvas and they just soak up flavor so well. But I just kind of coated these guys in oil and seasoning and tried to get them in like a single layer on my cookie sheet, which was a little hard because there was too many for that cookie sheet. And I put them in a 400-degree oven for like 30 to 45 minutes, just depending on how brown and crispy you want them. We like them very brown and crispy, but not everybody does. So just do that to your likeness. Just try to kind of stir them and flip them halfway through. Those are so amazing and so easy to cook. Oh man, such an easy meal. So on to these pork chops. I was supposed to be making, I think it was called awesome pork chops, and I changed my mind. We are having French onion pork chops. So I just had these 3 pork sirloin chops, and I seasoned both sides with some Kinder's salt, pepper, and garlic. I think it's called the blend, and a little bit of poultry seasoning. And I put them in the skillet with a little bit of oil just to get that sear right there. I'm not looking to cook them all the way through at all. They're going to cook in the oven in a minute, but I wanted that bit of color and that bit of flavor on them just because it's going to be fantastic. So once they were done cooking, I removed them from the pan and put them in a casserole dish off to the side. And then I threw in this thinly sliced onion. It is a whole entire onion. I probably, at the end of the day, could have done 2 onions once I served this because these had wilted down so small that there really wasn't enough to go around. But that's okay. It was still really good and the flavor was there. I used the oil that was left in the pan and then it added in about 2 tablespoons of butter. And then I cooked these guys for like 10 to 15 minutes until they had reduced and they had turned a little bit golden. I would have loved to have caramelized them all the way through, but the recipe didn't call for that. So I was following the recipe on this particular day just to kind of to check it out and see how it is. And as far as shortcuts go, man, this was amazing. It was so good if you're looking for a shortcut French onion soup to top stuff with. Now, I did put a little bit of salt and pepper in with these onions about halfway through the cooking time just to kind of help along, pull out the moisture, that kind of stuff. And then once these were about to the point that I wanted them to be, right like that, there's some golden brown. You still see some white, but there's a lot of golden. It's so much flavor. It's so delicious. Onions get so sweet and caramely when you cook them like that. It changes their flavor profile just completely, and they are so delicious. But to this, I'm going to add in a little bit more oil just because the pan looks pretty dry. Then I'm going to add in a couple of tablespoons of flour, and I'm going to add in a little bit of garlic. And we're going to cook this while the flour kind of cooks out a little bit so it doesn't have that floury taste. And then we're going to add in, for me, I added in some beef-based powder and then some water. It was like 1.5 cups of water. But if you have beef broth, that works too. Totally up to you, whatever you have on hand. And then just let that simmer for a little while so it thickens up and gets all nice and delicious. I will link the recipe down below, but I also just kind of improvised and tossed in a bit of Worcestershire sauce just because I thought it was going to be delicious, and it was. It really adds a little something special, especially if you want to like beef up the flavor a little bit. So it's not in the recipe, but I recommend go ahead and tossing some in. Just keep this stirring to make sure you don't get like lumps and clumps and all that kind of stuff. That's not good eats at all. We don't want that. But once this is thickened up, and it doesn't take very long, you just want to let it kind of simmer and boil like that for just a couple of minutes. It'll be like a nice thick soup kind of consistency. And we're just going to pour this over the top of these beautiful pork chops that we had already cooked. I made sure I got onions on top of each one of those guys just because when I served it, I knew I was going to want onions on top of them. If you have some mushrooms you want to throw them in, this is a perfect dish for mushrooms too. Once your pork chops are cooked all the way through, I did test mine with a thermometer just to be sure because these guys were so thick. I actually had to put them in longer than expected, longer than the recipe said because they were too thick and they weren't cooking all the way. But once they are completely cooked, we're going to top them with some Swiss cheese. I did 2 slices per pork chop, and I only topped 2 of them because my oldest doesn't like cheese, and my 2 little ones weren't going to eat this. I put this back in the oven for like 10 minutes just to melt the Swiss cheese, and that is what it looks like. Oh my gosh, this was so good. I'm going to try this with chicken soon just because this was amazing. It had so much flavor. All right, let's move on to the last meal of this week. This was by far the favorite. Who knew? This is that Pollo Fundido. I've seen Taylor Elmore and Southern Wife Everyday Life, I think is the name of her channel. I have seen them both make this. I think it's from a restaurant that one of them goes to. And I didn't have the recipe on hand. I was just kind of cooking what I thought I remembered them making. This was fantastic. So I started off by making some Mexican rice. I know everybody has their own way of doing it, so this is mine. I rinsed 1 cup of rice, like I always do before I cook rice. And then I toasted it in a pan with a little bit of oil for just a few minutes. I'm not looking to really get a whole lot of color on it, just a tiny, tiny bit. And then I stirred in a spoonful of minced garlic, probably like 1 to 2 cloves. And then I like to use this tomato bouillon. I love this stuff. It's so good, but it's super, super salty. So do be cautious. If you're using it, you probably are not going to need any more salt in your dish. It is so salty. But I stirred in enough for 2 cups of water, and then I added in a couple of tablespoons of tomato paste, and I stirred all that in and left it in the pan for just a minute, and then I added in my water. And then I let this just simmer on low with a lid on it for like 20 minutes, and I had really good Mexican rice. I think I did toss in some dried onion flakes as well. Typically, I will put diced onion. I was just not feeling it this day. Yeah, there they are, the dried onions. This works great too, but fresh onions, of course, is even better. I just did not feel like dicing up an onion today, and that's okay. Some days are like that. Anyway, lid on, cook it for like 20 minutes or so until the rice is done, and it's delicious. Now I'm going to make some queso. This is just like a little teeny tiny block of store brand Velveeta, just the white one. And I'm going to cube this up and then melt it in the microwave. I'm not going to worry about melting it completely in the microwave, just almost all the way through. And then to it, I'm going to add some picante sauce. I know everybody adds Rotel tomatoes, but I really feel like the picante sauce adds a little bit more to it. I love it. It's such good flavor. It does make a really thick queso this way. I did like a cup of cubed cheese, and then I added in like half a cup of picante sauce. So if you like a thinner cheese, you're going to want to thin this out with like some milk or something like that. Just a heads up, because it is very, very thick. But man, this is so delicious. I just melted it in the microwave. I didn't do anything fancy. I stirred it all together, and boom, I had queso. Now, what are we going to do with all this? We're going to pour it over some chicken. So I do have some chicken tenders, and I had thawed them out, and then I just seasoned them very, very heavily. This is probably the heaviest I've seasoned anything, but man, it was delicious. I didn't know what to put on there because I felt like what I had seen people do was always different. So I did smoked paprika, chili powder, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, and pepper. I put seasoned side down, and then I seasoned the top side while it was cooking. And I did it on a fairly high heat because these are small, so it doesn't take long for them to cook. I wanted a really, really good sear on these guys, and I got it. Oh man, this chicken was so perfect with this dish. So essentially what you do is you cook the chicken, and then I guess you don't have to, but I chose to kind of slice it up. And you put it on top of a bed of that Spanish rice, and then you pour queso over the top. And it was fantastic. I did try to find the recipe online, but I could not find one. When I searched Pollo Fundido, other things came up like chimichanga kind of things and some other burrito dishes. When I found, let's see, I think it was Pollo con Queso, and that one was the closest to it, but I'm just winging this because I think one of them was cooking it from a restaurant they like to go to, so there's probably not an official recipe for this. Anyway, try it, guys. This is so good. I will do my best to list out what I used on the chicken and things like that so you guys can make this at home. But it was so fantastic. We love this one. You'll probably be seeing it again because it was so amazing. And I just served it with some beans and some chips and salsa.
All right, guys, that's going to be it for our dinners this week. Like I said, there were some extras in there, desserts, breakfast items, things like that. But man, everything was so, so good. I wanted to share it all with you guys. Again, I want to take a minute and say thank you so, so much for joining me every week for my videos and for subscribing to my channel. It means so much to me. Thank you guys. Thank you so, so much. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. I do believe my next video will be Wednesday, and it's a What's in My Kids Easter Basket video. So if you are interested in that, make sure you've clicked all the bells so you know when all of my stuff comes out. Anyway, guys, hope you have a fantastic week, and I will see you soon. Bye.